it's really difficult doing this kind of a video because as a person who's worked with coders before, because I used to drive enterprise resource planning projects, which are, big softwares that companies use. And I used to manage whole projects where I have to roll out a software solution in a given timeline that makes everybody happy. And believe me, it's almost impossible to get that done. Whenever you look at a piece of software and you say there might be a lack of attention to detail, that's very damning and it's very dangerous, because guys like Miles, who are sitting at the top as a studio director, they're going to be furious if they find out that there is a feature in the game that's got a bug that's been there for a long time, or a certain feature doesn't give the right kind of information to the end user. They will sit there and they will be furious because that points to a lack of attention to detail. And the poor coder who's doing this is the one that's going to be facing, the hard questions. And I don't like doing these kind of videos because it gets people into trouble. And I want to apologize, and I want people to understand that this video is coming from the heart. I really hope no one gets into trouble for the things that I say today. The year is 2023. And for some of the older generation of Football Manager players, I bet some of you out there are still pretty frustrated with certain features in the game. Maybe there are bugs that are still in the game after all this time. So it's no surprise if you go down to the Sports Interactive forums, you might find some strong criticisms leveled at the game. Today, what we plan to do is we plan to dive into some of these criticisms. We're going to take a look at some of these. And yes, we're going to try and mourn about them constructively and identify areas of the game as I really need to address. First, let's hear from Stinger. If you don't know him already, he's a content creator. He's got his own channel. You should follow him. And he's here to talk about the match engine.
The FM23 match engine, I have mixed opinions. Going forward, I think it's great. You get some lovely combinations, some lovely movements. It's beautiful to watch. On the flip side, when it comes to defending, sometimes I think you're better off just doing that and just praying for the best. It's not the greatest, is it?
I agree with Stinger. I think the match engine is brilliant at times, and at times it looks fallible. But isn't that what human nature is all about? Human nature is unpredictable. There are going to be moments where we are brilliant, and there are moments where we're going to be forgettable. This is something SI has been trying to see more of in the game. At least this year, I find, and I feel this very strongly, you block in one tactic, don't expect to see it work for every single game. You're going to face managers that make tactical changes during matches you need to address. And this is something SI got right. However, there are still some issues with the match engine. I still think that wide indirect free kicks could be an issue because sometimes nobody seems to mark somebody who's coming in to score a goal. Naturally, these are all set piece related, and I'm hoping that SI do address the set piece created in the near future. But there are still more glaring issues with the game, and the match engine isn't one of them.
All the new features, I mean, they're pretty good, but I kind of don't like what they've done to the scouting setup. I preferred it the way it was, called me old-fashioned. I just think it was easier to use.
I won't be surprised if there are people out there who actually like the scouting interface. And some of you probably don't like the scouting interface. I mean, if you can find anybody who likes something about the game 100%, I'll be very surprised. But it still isn't one of the bigger issues in the game. Whenever a developer releases a product, we gotta hope that that is the best version that they can release. When they released the squad planner, they released the squad planner that had errors inside it. When you go to the squad planner and you start looking for certain fields, you get inconsistent views. Like this, for example. If I'm looking to find how my goalkeeper has done statistically, they give me outfield stats. Then when you go and look for stats for players, you get 3 named views. Good. I'm expecting to see 3 different views. Instead, what we get are 3 views that are exactly the same, but have 3 different names. One could argue that these statistics are done by design because we kind of want to know how players done playing in a specific position and playing in a specific role. Yes, this could be helpful. With this kind of data, apps, goals, assists, man of the match, All right, let's take a look at the right flank. Let's just ignore the fact that the goalkeeper statistics are all wrong for now. Now we go to the right flank. We'll switch to playing as a position. Milos Pantovic has played here 11 times. He scored 4 goals, had 1 assist, and 2 Man of the Match awards with an average rating of 6.85. Then we go to the right side of the pitch. Milos Pantovic has made 1 appearance, scored 1 goal. Hang on a minute. How did he get 2 Man of the Match awards if he's only made 1 appearance? It's clear to me that this average rating is for an entire season. What we really need is information that is pertinent. And this is something that needs to be picked up on early during testing. Because if we are going to give users this kind of information that perhaps they're going to use to decide on players playing in these kind of positions, then perhaps we need statistics that are relevant for these positions. Maybe even going to the extent of saying, okay, fine, he's played in this position 10 times. The average rating when he's played there for those 10 times is maybe different value. This could be information that is really helpful. However, this looks like it's been pulled and it's not been pulled out of the game correctly. The issue I have with this is it points to a lack of attention to detail. And this isn't the only area where we have issues with. Because if you look at the UI of the game Football Manager, it needs to change. There are so many small issues with the UI, and I'm surprised that SI keep releasing new features without addressing existing UI issues that they have had in the game since 2017. This is a match preparation UI bug that has been in the game since 2017. Yes, bug reports have been raised every year. Now, how does this bug work? It's very simple. Now, when you go training, you can train match preparation activities for a match that's coming up in the week. Now, whenever you train those match preparation activities, special focus will be given to special areas. And then when you go to the home page, it will tell you what those areas are for the match that's coming up. The issue is in the description, it's only for the upcoming match. But when you go to the UI, it makes you think that it is going to apply for all matches during the week. Here you can clearly see that we have one match coming up against Gil Vicente. We did attacking movement and defensive shape a week ago. But for this particular match, we've only trained attacking movement. However, when you go to the home page, the UI tells a different story. The UI actually tells us that we have prepared for this game with attacking movement and defensive shape. In other words, it's rolled over information from the previous week into this week's UI. Information like this is inconsistent because it's not very clear. That match preparation panel stays there until the second match is played. But according to SI back then, it only applies to the match that is coming up, not to the second match in that week. So you have to do match preparation activities all over again. So I've been raising this bug for the longest time because it leads to a lot of confusion. And this is the element of the UI that's very frustrating. The UI in itself needs to improve in the long run. There are other UI bugs as well, but a lot of these are smaller UI bugs, like how you need to scroll down to see all the traits. Now, these aren't that big of an issue, but whenever you have a UI bug that makes you question how the game works, that is a problem. And SI have to address this. So whenever SI release a new feature like the squad planner, but they don't address underlying issues that affect playability, then you're not really helping the user because you're leading to more confusion and basically you're just building on a bad base. The user interface definitely needs a refresh. But when you look at the squad planner, sometimes I wonder why the squad planner isn't made available for international management. It seems like an obvious fit. But I think that SI need to integrate the squad planner with other areas of the game to make it fully usable. I mean, integrate it with the data hub, integrate it with training. It should be an integrated feature. It shouldn't be something that we're going to roll it out, but then we're going to improve it in the next 2 to 3 years. Don't do that. Because that's like giving us half a feature. Out in the community, I get the sense that a lot of people think that long-term youth development is broken and squads are getting older. Actually, if you do a real good long-term soak test, there's nothing wrong with long-term youth development, right? As far as progression is concerned, it's perfectly fine. I think the algorithm, as I have set up, is working. But in order for us to discuss that further, we've got Davincit here, and Davincit has been a regular contributor to the Sports Interactive forums. And tell us a bit more about yourself, because I'm sure there'll be people out there who don't have no idea who you are.
Yeah, as you said, I'm David. I'm a modder within the FM community. I'm the creator of the Increased Realism Mega Pack, so I adjust a lot of things within the database with the goal to increase the realism and make things more realistic.
Have you shared your feedback on what you found out about the database to Sports Interactive?
Yeah, sure. All the time, directly in the forums or directly with some developers.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've noticed that you have got quite a good engagement with the developers. And that's one of the reasons why on today's show, what we're going to talk about is long-term youth development. Davincit, you do a lot of soak tests. But can you explain how you do your soak test? Because I think in order for us to understand whether there's anything right or wrong with long-term youth development, first we need to establish how you go about doing your testing. So could you explain that to us?
I can try. In the end, for me, it's like doing a picture from 2022, especially with the current ability of the different levels, like 1 to 10, 20 to 30, and so on until 200, and then compare it like 10 years later, because then I can see if the development in general is accurate. Because if it's too slow, it will be lower 10 years later. This is like the overall picture across the whole database, and then I split it down into the age groups. So are there enough under 21 players with a current ability of 120 or higher compared to 2022? And this is how I get a pretty good picture if the development rate is well spread.
So basically what you're doing is you've loaded every single nation into the database and you just do a simulation. You just keep on doing this simulation. So, okay. So what did you find out? Because I'm looking at your spreadsheet right now, right? That one spreadsheet that you did. And when I looked at your spreadsheet, you've got several categories. You got like under 21 current ability. You got the year 22, then you got the second column. C column is the year 25. Then you've got the year 2032. And I've noticed even here, when I'm looking at this, like just current ability from 100 to current ability 200, the numbers for under 21 stays almost the same. I mean, I won't say it's almost the same. There's not a lot of variance between them, except for maybe one category, which is like the current ability 71 to 80. You know, there's a big drop from 15,000 to 9,000 between the year 22 to 32. But all of us, we're not interested in, I don't go out of my way to sign players for CA 90. You know, that's like 1 star or 2 stars. Yeah. So, we're looking for a current ability at least 3 stars minimum most of the time. And that would be about CA of about 111 or 110 and higher. So what does this, I'm seeing CA is not really changing very much. What does this mean?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this data like isolated, you could say like there is no issue at all because it looks pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
But as often data can be misleading, and it's the same here because current ability is only one measurement. The other one would be the reputation. And the reputation system, especially along younger players, is a bigger issue. So it's like in real life, like players first achieve their ability, and then they get like scouted, and then their reputation grows. And this mechanism doesn't work that properly. So the current ability, the skills of the players is pretty good, but the reputation doesn't grow fast enough. This is one point. And the other point is that the distribution among nations is, I won't say it's bad, but it's not that great. So you have nations which are almost like memes, known to be overpowered, like Mexico. Like
Okay.
everyone knows, like 5 or 10 years later, you have a world class player from Mexico. It is because Mexico is overpowered.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I did notice this because if I'm looking at some of the data right, we've got, I mean, even in because you sent me this file save, yours,
yeah,
the year 2032. So what I did was really simple, right? So I just filtered it from ages 15 to 21, right? World reputation is at least fairly good. So when
yeah.
I looked at this, right at the top, right, the boy with the highest PA in the world, okay,
Who is
happens,
it?
yeah, hold on, let me just do it again. Is Serkan Chankaya from Turkey, playing in the PKO Bank Polski League. That means he's playing in Poland. The player with the highest potential ability, 19 years old, is worth about 2.3 to 7 million. And then we've got Germans, we got a Brazilian, we got another Brazilian, we got a French. And if I go down the list, the first surprise I get is a Peruvian. Then
Yeah,
I get a Danish player. Then I get an Egyptian player. And I've got, a Mexican player. And I've even got an Israeli player. So the thing is this, right? I'm seeing some nations like I wouldn't expect to see generating these high PA players. I mean, high potential ability players. Because, like Colombia, I see a few of them as well. Like I've seen an Ecuadorian, even in my own personal saves. Normally, what I end up doing is I end up sending scouts to Mexico and Colombia first.
of course.
It works, right?
Yeah, sure.
But why is it like this? I mean, why are nations like Mexico and Colombia? Why do these nations seem to be a bit more overpowered? Because you would think that nations like nations like England, France, Brazil, Germany, these are the nations we commonly expect, right? So they should be overpowered. But how does Mexico, even China and Colombia show these kind of growth patterns in the game?
Because this is how it's been set in the database. Partly, not only, but especially Mexico has just too good youth facilities and training facilities. So they reach a pretty high current ability at a young age. And if I've like compared a lot of those overpowered nations in 22 until 2030, so I can, and I know it happens almost every time, so I can clearly define, okay, this is an issue within the database, so this nation is overpowered. In the case of Mexico, for example, China is different. China is a mess. Sorry to be honest.
Why?
Uh, I don't know everything, but I know there is stuff which I can't fix, especially finances. They get way too rich, like 300, 400 millions in their accounts, but they don't spend it on transfers. But they spend it into the facilities, of course. I mean, they have millions in the banks, so why not spending in improving the youth facilities, youth training, and training facilities? And what happens when a club maxes out their facilities? Quality of the players
We'll go to the roof.
improves.
Yeah, because long-term player development in the game of Football Manager is a very simple thing to adjust, right? All you got to do, I mean, get the right kind of coaches, get the right kind of facilities, right? If you got those two nailed, then all you got to do is make sure that your players are playing the right amount of matches and your youth team is doing really well in the competitions that they're playing in. Now, if you nail all of these together, you get really good growth developments in your club. And if that is the case, then this certainly points to something quite quite glaring, right? I mean, you being polite. You're basically saying right now that when we enter data into the game, because I don't like saying it, I don't like to point fingers at people, but if the data is inaccurate, if researchers in Football Manager are giving nations like Mexico or China values that are too high for youth facilities or training facilities, then what you're saying is that this could impact long-term youth development. Am I right?
It impacts so much more, but definitely also the youth development.
So,
And it's a bit more complicated. If you overpower nations like Mexico, you also weaken nations like England. Because where go the best players in the world from, if Mexicans, for example, England, Spain. So the amount of foreign players in those leagues goes up, which also prevents young English players, for example, to develop enough, and which ends in a weaker English player base, especially in the national team. So the average age in the national teams in England is too high. Long story short, a bit.
okay, I
Yeah.
like your long story short explanation. It's very very easy to understand. So basically, it's a very very delicate problem that SI need to fix, because when I look at long term growth of players, right, I'm looking at growth patterns of about between 1% to 2%. And it seems to be the right value because a lot of squads are sitting at 90% of the PA. So when you look at growth progression for players, you don't want them to be too high, because if they're too high, they grow like cabbages, and then you get too many superstar players who are like 19 and 20 years old. That it seems to me that SI actually kind of fix that, but that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think long-term growth progression is okay in the game right now?
Yes.
Okay, so we are not wrong.
Overall, yes.
Overall, yes, right. So, but it's the data then that's a bit off then.
Yes, it's an issue within the database and not like the game code itself from from SI.
So, what is the one thing you hope SI get right before they release the winter patch?
Fix China is one thing. I hope time will be enough to fix it. And reputation issue. I've talked a lot to some developers, explained them what really needs to be fixed. I have two examples, like the European Golden Boy Award and the Next Gen Award. Like those two known awards for the best youngsters in the world, they have no impact in the reputation of the players because there is a zero value within the database, and it makes me crazy because it's four clicks, add a value in, and the reputation issue would already be a bit slower. For 2 years, I'm talking about it, and nothing changed.
So basically, what you're saying right now is, if a kid wins the European Golden Boy Award, the only person who's going to be happy is you, the player, but it's going to do nothing to the game. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Basically, he wins the Golden Boy Award, and his reputation doesn't go up unless he's playing for you.
Right. No. Also, if he plays for me, the system is the same for the human player and the AI. It simply doesn't change anything. Okay. It's just like you get a message. Oh, cool! My player wants the Golden Boy Award. It's like, cool, nothing happened.
But why would it be so important that something happened? Why is it important for his reputation to go up? What will he do with the game then?
Because especially for the national teams, it's important that not only the current ability is high enough, but also the reputation, the national reputation, and the worldwide reputation of a player. And this is especially if you go to the top youngsters like England, France, etc. They need to have an extra push with awards that the reputation is high enough that the AI considers to nominate them within into the national team. And this transition is bad. This doesn't work. Okay. And it would be such an easy fix to at least make the issue a bit smaller. It will still exist, but I don't get why this little adjustments isn't made for since I reported it like 2 or almost 3 years ago.
David said, if I were to go into the game right now, using the pre-game editor, and if I were to change the youth facilities, the player's reputation, all this information that's within the data, will it fix the problem of the way these youth are these players are distributed in the world?
Like 90% of the issue will be solved, yes.
Wow. And that was Dave and Sid. Davin Sid. I always get the two confused. I want to thank Davin Sid for helping me out on today's show. Thanks a lot, Davin Sid.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is a game that quite a number of us are passionate about. And it's very disappointing when I look at the game and I ask myself, as I drop the ball, is there a lack of attention to detail? Are the researchers entering the wrong kind of data? Because, if I was a researcher, I'm probably going to be sitting down there going, no, there's nothing wrong. Other people out there, they don't understand long-term player development. I understand long-term player development. This is the correct data that's going in. But the fact remains, right? If I go into the pre-game editor, adjust all the data the way I think it should be, I don't see the issues popping up. So, what goes on within SI Towers, I can't imagine, right? But the thing here is this. As players of the game, we don't appreciate a lack of attention to detail. We don't appreciate inconsistent UIs. These are issues that SI need to sort out. And I'm hoping that by the winter update, these issues are sorted. And hopefully in FM24, we get a better game than the one that we had for FM23. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I hope I didn't ruffle too many feathers. And if you have any comments and you want to share your feedback, please do so in the comments below. I am sure somebody from SI will be reading them. You guys stay safe, take care of each other. Have a good day. Bye-bye.